U.S. Department of Transportation. So apologize for not starting when we needed to, but I appreciate everybody on the call today. At this time, Ms. Begay, could you do the roll call?
Again, good morning, Resource Development Committee, and also the audience that are listening in to our special meeting this morning. It's RDC special meeting of August 3rd, 2021. Roll call. Ricky Naz.
Delegate Rick Nez is present.
Wilson Stewart Jr.
Present.
Thomas Walker Jr. Thomas Walker Jr. Herman M. Daniels.
Good morning, I'm here.
Mark A. Freeland.
Good morning, I'm here.
Key Allen Begay is on travel and is excused from the meeting today, Mr. Chair, but I do see Vice Chair Thomas Walker's call online. Back to you, Chair. You do have, with Thomas Walker being on the call, you do have 5 members and it constitutes a quorum for you to conduct your special meeting today. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay, for that. And next we have invocation. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, could you do the invocation?
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I was fiddling around with the buttons here, mute and unmute and so forth. Goshin, Beshin, Tuzun, Behadaditsi, Chinantado, Tysonilzanti, Without Yat Efleco, Tuzun, Bebesa, Itlanza, Kisto, Tuzun, the Quat Echo. Was all the cold now strong, Himato Yazaki, is it that is institution in the Thai, what is not called to Ebe Beshin, Nado, Ebe had the need echo. The last what you cut out a bench has on, and they was it clean or echo. Other corn, it is chido corn, when it lotty trained echo. So what at the need, Edo, what at the inches has uncle. A court ego, Nishima, do Nisha, Chohat a fancy kiss a co, a son, Himato, Yazaki, Traco. A court up had not edit on Hito, what ego. She had a neat echo. A court cut out a tenadi, neto dance, and any kiss or the teacher. So there's an hope and each yaki, what out is a balcony zinco. Sanction, South Benches, the horn that it are a need, a dot at 8,000 a Nichella, Jordan Fido, medical. A co even a gas don't know what are a bansas case a consultant that is the chanty, the penny busy. Call that Shananta, fish mother, and they don't call the Tatani car. It's Jago, Shiki Resource Development Committee, or teaching at a Shinani Kako, Quiskana, there's a Copen Hataho, a teacher, Nan Shiki, Shinani Chris, Bishan at the called a Nahata, Anadi means, and that has the Kianadi. I don't let call bandit into the question that's so she because I need the Michelle. Other contact Tahaki to call members in clinic if I get a non should need quite a citizen Panahot a call without a bit need not or could a panel the naked bin a could echo non shy you does it all Saniki in the has she been. I put echo. A cohort that she do Benilla, Dota Benil, so that they need to sat or nesigi to punches bahazunda akut end the whole so the no so to ishin yat so hot kut aban sa kis ko even na diche so zumbe hit zid or the ko the hodigin na hazo ko kut ko I don't that ya ko ke hotikliyat hito unique do the ko beta zili sa kisat and leni ko and the ko the pain ba hojon inchi ba hojon insa ba hojon to edo ko unique do ban si kis edo beta zili beta hono ko inabita hono beta nesse to hot adi ba konitsun ko edo ko ban si kis di ho so zimbe hit do the ko ho that Shinant Adam Lenigito, Bishmas, and nothing deep and sit ochi, Kunzata Inanish, a day, Niki Kon, things like that is ho, Edot Yaho, Bisto body, Niko, teaching without it, so doesn't be Nani Credo de Sako. I don't own Handa, should be Shell Kako, Edo, without a percentage, Nanish, but a daily. Ko sata kwit akut ko sata ida tratne le kaho akut enda that sahike inan shedel onkat na kina khidoba akut ko heda sin zido dich akut ko inan shedel ko ako issue ho kwet joba initsen ide large what aben sikiste yadil kito hayu ndasti even that queen leads in the car. So there's an home by hate zero by yat ehodod by yat what nan shidi next but you should see lolly so there's an beta hate zero. I don't so there's an be hate zero dot what edo the chonits and even I could out so there's an be has zero this call in the not seeing the car. You hear your bike call benches when not sound all this. And then she bed the don't she bed hot then she's going to sound or the co put aircon she do con it edo that and she see do the thought when it zago I need nego so what ego a nanish anadi link teacher a call also a need your bench need or lefty you need kid the co I don't but your by needs in teacher a Nainil Kako, the never carried Niji ko, the Nanji Niji, either, but your by needs and the called other Chahanit, Niji Bedahanism. I don't he kay up Kai ho, the ne cat Niji Chahanit, Niji either the Bedahanism than the Chahakiba has no even natural, ain't he kay that was no. Zado Bedahanism than the I could add a because the Nancy and Niki I called out for Bahadits, the Shonits and asked for a job by needs and asked for a paneta, Choti, Kodo, Babasits, even a citizen begitch Kodo, asked for Bayek, got asked for a party. Or diet age of by instant ditch, digging. Then the not saying in him, but on a not saying on us, so don't him, though Yadis in the car. A call that it was home, they have said or the teacher, I don't hold on, she had did nature, Johnny's in the call. A call every so but in his zinc or the store, they have said or the call. I don't call that Navajo Nation. Bedahi benches because you not only home Benidni ko I don't know and then you get home that but job by needs in the what echo I don't call the home and that has the what Eda Quena has just or Conzato now hold you she is need or home the house you call what Eda what ego in a hot ada yego epitni khasdin yego hatshi nasni so yat ehi eda ko ban sene case ko kut do kont ba kon itsen si clean ko teacher ho hata bi hati ka chota da ban si case na ko ko ye ko pen na hada hadi to na hoi na to yata ko ada hadi to zaniki la ko ye ko en ko la ko na ni hol ye ki jado dan de ye ko kines ka to ni kines la ko ko nda has de kwid shi ka ni de la do ni sa ay la sin ko at end ho je bi khani ka to ko hol ji ko da ya na hot le ana had no close do le nda has to aba hazunen das ni ko ido je konte ko ta de si ki se ko jo ye ko bi khati ka to ta ko nadi ka je ta de an si ki se na ko ta an sa ki se ki to de zun bi la do le ti chin ko o de go ni je it need made all this na in she large you so job ba hun sin ki ta so de sin do le ti chin ko no so do le na ko ti o asiki bi a do na nis ka do le che ra da yo ka tin de ko ta ye ya so zin ka de sha ho a be ho ne ki do ben so ki ta ko de be ha si do le ko shi o yu ji ho yo ne ko lo ko o yu ji do ban su ji case ta le ko ko ni ta na hot end jo pa ini tsin da sa ki te ko dana ati na ati hot ko skaudo na ana ni ji ka da an ji zi do hada ini na do jo de so na ni ka do ni chuni tsin large tsin so do de so da so zun be ha si do de chand do se ko oda so de sin do de ko jo do de so de shne ko jo na hasni do de ko jo na hasni thank you chairman
Okay, and so and Honorable Vice Chair Walker and Hudson and give back K Hinton. Kashe Koro Nasnana. Are there any announcements? Shananta. Ms. Begay, any announcements?
Chairman Naz, good morning. This morning I sent you copies of your revised August calendar. In there, you'll note that we have tomorrow, the 24th council has a meeting with OPVP. And that meeting will just be between the leaderships. And so there was no notification that I received, but it was all done by teleconferencing. On the 5th will be the beginning of your budget hearing. We will start with water rights as well as Navajo Gaming Regulatory Office. And water rights presentation always requires an executive session. So we will be needing to go into executive session on the 5th. Then we have budget hearing scheduled for Friday and the 9th, Monday, and the 10th. Every day our budget hearing will begin at 9 o'clock and we'll cover each of the divisions budget during that time. On the 11th, depending on how we move along with our budget schedule, we may do all of the budget legislations on that day, or either that we may need to cancel RDC and do revisits on the 11th. So right now, the regular meeting is still set as scheduled. On the 12th, I believe you all have your NABI meeting. And on the 13th, I have that date reserved just in case we call for a special meeting. To do the budget legislation. That's what I have for you for next week. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gay. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other announcements?
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Honorable members of the Resources and Development Committee, staff, social media, Office of Legislative Counsel, Shema, Aruna Quado, Nagaitam, should shape Quadotam, for the Hain 3 shop at Quado, but not any error, Quado. I have one announcement, Quado Nagaitam, actually $2. Nagaitam, Ojeto, they're getting their backhoe today. They say that I'll be over there today, this morning. So I don't only $1,000 so they have an agenda. So I'm on their agenda for the later. Today, backhoe, again, for I just want to say thank you to RDC and also the members of the 24th Naval Council for the especially to my colleague, Delegate Phelan. I see my brother, chapter by 4 this kid, heavy equipment fund me. So I see I hear them, so issue I hear and I wish that stay for the
Honorable Daniel?
Yes.
You're breaking up.
Okay. What about now, Mr. Chair?
Nashan.
Mr. Chair, what about now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Honorable Daniels, we lost you. Honorable Daniels. Honorable Daniels. Then, honorable members of RDC, any other announcements? Then, yeah, a question will move on.
Chairman.
Yes. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman, Delegate Freeland. Yeah, if I may, Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Colleagues, Resource Development Committee members, staff, everyone on this call. Thank you for that prayer. Thank you for my brother, his comments, and we really have to remember that this is a good form of collaboration, just like what we had yesterday with OPVP, and our beneficiaries are our people. So we definitely thank a lot of people, a lot of employees as well. Division Community Development is one. NDOT. There's so many of our people to thank, our employees to thank this morning. And this heavy equipment would not have been possible through our dialogue, through our discussions, through everything that we put forth as far as the intent. And we always have to remind ourselves, who are the beneficiaries of our work? Who are the beneficiaries? And that's our people. So just one comment I wanted to make on that, Chairman. We should probably at some point start talking about ARPA a little bit more in depth, and maybe this might come up tomorrow. We need to ask ourselves, or we need to really make clear what is eligible for ARPA, what is not eligible for ARPA. I think to distinguish and set those parameters. You know, I really, I have projects, we all have needs in our areas, but what is going to be eligible? I think that's something we need to ask DOJ to really set forth as far as making clear our power lines. Our power lines, for one, are they eligible? Our water lines eligible? Wastewater, broadband. What is eligible? And you know, we did some legislations that asked for reimbursements too. Are those eligible? So, Chairman, I just want to give our committee a heads up. The more I think about this, you know, I think we're going to find instances where we may run into things that are not going to be eligible. And, you know, just FYI, and we need to have that discussion, maybe bring it up tomorrow during the discussion with the president and DOJ. So, Chairman, just want to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable members of RDC. Honorable Daniels, are you back with us? Any other announcements? None. We'll go down to introductions, recognizing guests and visiting officials. For all, we'll start with RDC members. Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members and staff, our audience, our listeners, our meeting participants. Good morning to each and everyone. Thomas Walker Jr., Agency, Western Navajo Agency, ating Talani Lake, Luke, Cameron, City, Coal Mine Chapters, Banashako, 24th Naval Nation Council, Jim. I don't Enshinigi Ashin, Henshin, Nana Bean, Katoni Bashin, what's on this tree? It don't say this kissing, Dashanale ko Ela Ado Vice Chairman, Janan Jinsen, Resource Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Stewart.
Good morning, Shanai. Roshanai Kadosh Jayaja Dosh Major Kadosh this morning on our special this morning. Slim Donanish Ejkachini, Bashin, Kachin, the Shachi W between the Chanel Aro Patrachagi Aya, so Bekel Sheet, once a little Hijid, out of our defense agency representative for the Resource Development Committee. Again, good morning, everybody. Citizen Behain this morning to start our meeting off. And again, thank you for everybody being online with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Honorable Daniels. Honorable Daniels. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, good morning. Yananate colleagues. Good morning. It's a beautiful day on the Navajo Nation. It's one thing that's really nice is to see green coming about on our land and restoration and healing occurring with all this rain. You know, I wish we had this in April and May, but it's good to see anyway. It's the greens coming back. So yeah. She a Mark Freeland she do tlingi tutsoni snowdop kia ani a bushes chin Sanji Kennedy che I don't tena batli edish nale late East Osikaris na Shire represent 8 chapters out of Eastern Navajo. East Osikari Crown Point there I don't Nahadishki Dalton Pass Te I Standing Rock Jada Adatine Besenti Lake Valley Telkai a White Rock. I don't Hanant Legi or Herfano. I don't Naize, Naizi. The 8 chapters that represent. Good morning to our chapters, and good morning to all the officials and staff listening on this call. Our division, our divisions, our employees, everyone on this call. Hey, good morning to one and all, and blessings to each and every one of you and your families, and continue to be safe. This Delta variant ain't no joke, and please get vaccinated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable Begay. Honorable Daniels. Jay Ricknez in Shiawasan and Slow Zay Touchin, Bashish Chain Sanabit, Nashit Shado, Kia, Ani, the Chanel Hotel 8, and then Chicago chapters, Banash, Nishige, Hogback, San Juan, Ninhanzar, Upper Fruland, Burnham, and Newcomb. Welcome, everybody. Honorable Paul Begay.
Oh, thank you, Chair. My brother, Honorable Delegate Ricky Ness. Additional Vice Chair Thomas Walker, members, Brother Honorable Delegate Freeland, Delegate Stewart. Stay at that in the RDC committee, with the exception of Shanala Vice Chair. Of course, yeah, Tradition the names, maybe 20 buses chain. I don't chain the Shadokia, Annie the Shanala Conway, down. Now, Costo, in Hall, Adelia, not Banasha, could be Totona Helene, Ishak Gate, Chi, Fana Bankabatin. Ade Banasha, Ko, Shehedo. I just want to mention I totally agree with my brother, Honorable Delegate Mark Freeland. That probably the number one question, and this will eliminate a lot of confusion and put in a lot of clarification, is which of the projects are eligible for ARPA fund. We need that work session of some kind so that we can better understand it, so we can educate our local level, chapter level. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Begay. RDC staff, Ms. Begay.
Chairman Naz, Otto, Vice Chair Thomas Walker, and RDC members. Ado kihat citizen lenin kape hanada sokzito shimbe Canada inilne. Okoet I benachi itanadi tleiste. Sheya Shami Begay She Ado Resource Development Committee their advisor. Now Kadina and Shaw the Betlijan Bashishin Tupahe de Dashache Touchini de Dashanalo a son and shen. Laney G. Down, Sawmill, Arizona, Nasha. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay. Ms. Woody?
Yat bene Ternes, Ado RDC members, and Oslin Kido Anot Yat bene Ado Heshita is Anki at Hido Anot Yat bene. She Tracy Woody and she had all top a hunch or the Betlijan of Bashishin. He on it as she trade Jenny it as Shanala out on each now to see it late. I don't know the end hit a lot or late yacht been Mr. Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Woody. Ms. Khan?
Yat Ed Anasfo. Yad RDC members and Oslinigi, she Mariana Khan, the Shijine. Zone and the Slinigi a Tohe Dlini Nishlin, but Annie Bashir's chain, Bashir Dashache, Senjikin Dashanala. She tore this Ardent Nasha. Good morning to all. I will go on mute now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, and welcome back. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, Speaker's Office, Ms. Yako. None?
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel. I'm back online.
Okay. Go ahead. Introductions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't know koto should edge koto Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know Enslin give it tani. I don't get it see me that's je. Ashka lo that's nulla. I don't that. Ho here Glenny. I don't know kind of night that's a che. What at Enslin go down. Well, jet koto shot hot a big kid on us any bana shakoto dam. What I need the house made of letter, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Daniels. Do we have Dr. Yellowman on the call with us? NTUA?
Good morning.
Dr. Yellowman, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Nez and honorable members of RDC. Shay Pearl Yellowman in Shia. I don't Shlinigi a Tanabitlin Shmedog is a Sana Bashishin. Tobahanda Shiche Adohanalani Dashanala. Good morning to all of our council delegates on the call, our staff on the call. We do have DCD, Division of Community Development, on the call, as well as ASC. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. NTUA?
Good morning, everybody. This is Rex Kuntz, Deputy General Manager with N2A. I have a number of individuals on the call with me. My Principal Engineer, Dave Schultz, with Water and Wastewater, overall all of the water and wastewater. Our Operations Supervisor, Dave White, and our Operations Engineer, Mark Toledo. Regina Martinez, my Legislative Liaison, and my Associate Deputy, Ms. Rainey Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goddard?
Good morning, Chairman Nez, Vice Chairman Walker, members of the committee and staff and guests. This is Colin Goddard, Senior Director at Source Global. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Department of Justice? Anybody else on the call today?
Good morning, Chair, members of Resource and Development Committee. This is Philford from OPVP. Do bekehiti ninige kilichini snido laschi bashim and the che to the in the Chanel. Do she had on Hano Kay. Njuanagon hen the has don hen that the chido it be made as a ditch don look. Nazay that ayo. Here hadin and hen has kino. Ko siat eto yezi do she had do point to the zin betona days and nigi. Yes, sir. Can you hear me, Alfred? Can you hear me?
Anybody else on the call wishes to introduce themselves?
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me? Good morning.
I can hear you. Shiaj, David.
Did you hear me introduce myself?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you. I got disconnected there for a little bit. Anybody else on the call that wishes to introduce themselves? Shammy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on down to number 3, reviewing and approving the agenda. Ms. McGay, could you read the agenda for us?
Mr.
Ms.
Chair.
McGay, before you move forward, I'd like to have our Honorable Senator McGay is on the call with us, so Senator Begay, you may introduce yourself, sir. Press *6. Senator Begay.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. My apologies. Push *6. Good morning again, Honorable Chairman, members of the Resources and Development Committee. Tashe Carlisle Begay Chet Toswanisna Ki Ani A Bashis Chain. Thank you very much for having me on this morning.
Thank you, Senator. Ms. Begay, go ahead and read the agenda.
Mr. Chair and members of the Resource Development Committee, teleconferencing RDC special meeting, August 3rd, 2021, 9 a.m. agenda. Presiding Ricky Nash, Chairperson, Thomas Walker Jr., Vice Chairperson. 1, calling meeting to order, roll call, invocation, announcement. 2, recognizing guests and visiting official. 3, reviewing and approving the agenda. 4, reviewing and approving the journals, none. 5, receiving report. A, report from Global Source LLC. B, update report on a water restriction and NTA water data log. C, update report on status of heavy equipment, Sanction chapters, ARPA chapters, and monsoon relief. And 6, old business, none. 7, new business, A, legislation 011521, B, legislation 012021, C, approving a work session with Cell 1 and Navajo Nation Land Department General Land Development regarding FirstNet. It should be regarding FirstNet. That's going to be implemented across Navajo Nation. The recommended date are August 16th or the 17th. D, approving off-reservation travel and leadership meeting with CPK Insurance and Budget and Finance Committee in Scottsdale, Arizona on August 26th and 27th, 2021. 8, conclusion committee meeting, other announcement and adjournment. Mr. Chair. Back to you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, before I give it back to you, just letting you know that Budget and Finance are in their budget hearing. There was 2 legislation that were relating to sanction chapters to accommodate the Budget and Finance Committee hearing. Those 2 items will be placed on the agenda until August 11th, August 11th, I'm sorry, for RDC's consideration. Today, you will receive Division of Community Development's report on the sanction chapters. And also just letting you know that the Office of the Auditor General is on the call and has a written report available to RDC, which I sent out earlier, in case you call on them to provide additional information after RD's Division Community Development presents their report. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Begay. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second. Motion. RDC. Ms. Begay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and I think that one was from Delegate Stewart making a motion to.
Okay. Honorable Stewart. Honorable Stewart.
Yes.
Could you motion? Second by? Is there a second?
Delegate Daniel. I'll second the motion.
Honorable Daniels, thank you. Honorable members of RDC, are there any amendments?
Yes.
Any questions?
Motion for approval, yes.
Honorable Stewart, we cannot hear you. There's a lot of gargling noise. Honorable Stewart.
Chairman, I believe he might be in another meeting. That is,
Forgot to mute, sir.
Honorable Stewart, do you have any amendments?
No amendments, sir.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
We cannot hear you, Honorable Stewart. We hear you. It's unclear. Honorable members of RDC, any other amendments? None? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the agenda as is. Honorable Freeland? How do you vote? Honorable Freeland, how do you vote? Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay is excused. Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
I vote green.
Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Honorable Freeland? We have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries. We'll approve the agenda as is. Number 4, reviewing and approving journals. There's none. We're down to receiving reports. First on report, we have Global Sources, LLC. Mr. Goddard, you have 20 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Nez and Vice Chairman Walker Jr. and members of the RDC committee and staff for this opportunity to provide a report to the committee today. I hope you can hear me well. I have provided a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation to Ms. Begay that hopefully you received that can follow along with my remarks and presentation and provide some helpful visuals for the conversation. And if granted permission, I can share the screen and hear or just refer to the document and speak to it during my remarks. What is your preference, Chairman Nez?
We can just move right along with your presentation, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So again, my name is Colin Goddard. I'm a senior director at Source Global, and we are a public benefit corporation based in Scottsdale, Arizona, that has a singular mission to help make clean drinking water an unlimited and renewable resource. And my report to the committee here is specifically regarding an opportunity to help enable clean drinking water access for all and all members of Navajo Nation currently living without it today. And we'd like to help contribute to this goal by partnering to empower remote families who live far from water lines and who have told me that they will likely never receive water in their home in their lifetime, to harvest their own clean drinking water from vapor in the air, and the abundant natural moisture available to us in the atmosphere in a renewable, sustainable, and cost-effective way. And how we do that is by equipping these remote homes with off-grid and infrastructure-free source hydro panels to create, store, and dispense clean drinking water to a tap inside each home for long in the future. And most importantly, we make that happen by hiring and training members of Navajo Nation to lead this work of these installations and support their own communities.
Mr. Goddard?
Yes, sir.
Goddard, could you pause one moment, please?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. Everybody, please be respectful and put your phones on mute. Ashwarani phones mute. I'm hearing someone in the background when there's a presentation being given. Thank you. Mr. Goddard, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Nez. We know that members of some families on Navajo Nation, like many families in North America and throughout the planet, have challenges accessing clean drinking water that impacts public health and impacts family wallets. We know that it is very difficult to extend centralized water lines out to areas of low population density and in difficult terrain and geography. We know that the groundwater supplies available in many places are contaminated with naturally occurring contaminants and man-made contaminants, or have high salinity that render that water unsafe for human consumption. We know that the increasing drought and climate change conditions are putting increased stress on these local drinking water supplies. And the most common response that humanity and many families on Navajo Nation have returned to is to buy their drinking water in an expensive and wasteful plastic bottle, or haul water great distances. That is very challenging. And we know that on top of all this, that water rights and right of ways that are necessary to secure water resources are very important and take a significant amount of time to complete. And so these are just some of the challenges that I'm sure you, Chairman Nez, and members of the committee know quite well. And these are the challenges that we looked to overcome with what we do and try to provide a new opportunity for a solution. And we do that by transforming access, by tapping into the abundance of clean drinking water available to us, provided by nature in the air all around us. And we can do that with the technology that we created at Arizona State University nearly 10 years ago. It's called a hydro panel. It looks like a solar panel, but instead of making electricity, it is designed to turn water vapor in the air into liquid drinking water, just using the power of the sun. It's a fully self-contained system that creates, stores, dispenses to drink clean water to a tap. It is 100% infrastructure free. You can quite literally put these hydro panels on the ground in the middle of the desert, point them towards the sun, and you are able to create your own clean drinking water supply long into the future without any external power or water connections. So this can be a helpful tool, and that is our hope, is that we created this technology to be a helpful tool to provide drinking water to those who need it most in some of the most remote places on the planet. We know that this is not the solution for all the problems by any means. We think it can play an important role to ensure clean drinking water access for everyone. We designed this technology in the same way as a solar panel, as I said, to be scaled up and down to meet the needs of any location, whether that's a small system that we're providing at a residence that we'll talk about later on Navajo Nation, or 50 of them in a medium-sized system on top of a school or other public institution, or thousands of them in a field to create a well into the sky for a whole community. We can be scaled up and down to meet whatever need of any location. And as I talked to this committee today and provide this report, we have over 7,000 hydro panels operating and creating water for people to drink today in over 50 countries around the world, in a variety of residential, hospitality, hotels, remote work sites, remote communities and school systems all around the world, and in very dry and in very humid environments. This technology was born not far from Navajo Nation in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, and has been always designed to create water even where it is very dry and arid. And so to highlight some of the projects before getting into the project with Navajo Nation, We have done a number of projects in Australia with the country's Aboriginal Housing Office to provide hundreds of residential source systems to create drinking water for families in heavily drought impacted areas that did not have safe drinking water and had to rely on bottled water transported in from great distances and at great expense. We've worked in the country of Colombia in the northern part with their government and with local nonprofit and non-governmental organizations to support indigenous communities that live very far from any centralized infrastructure in clusters, where we have been able to create a small water farm next to each cluster to provide each cluster of homes its own drinking water supply when the families were typically walking great distances every single day to haul water from an unsafe source. And now they can walk a few feet only to tap into the drinking water available all around them. And then, of course, wanted to highlight our efforts with the Navajo Nation, which started last year with a number of small pilot projects. And as I speak to the members today, we are currently implementing a project with the Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources that I would like to highlight and provide a status update on for members of the committee. We initially developed this concept in conversations with the Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources last year during the outset of the pandemic to assist very remote families who are struggling to shelter in place because they had no clean water to drink at home, amidst other things, to provide them with their own drinking water supply at their home that they would own and have access to. This project ultimately became in a piece of legislation and was funded, passed by the council and signed by President Nez in the beginning of this year in January. And the contract was formally approved and we started the work around April and May of this year. We were able to leverage and utilize our connections that we had built with several chapters to work with chapters to identify the eligible participants in this program with Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources. Our requirements were to provide these systems to 506 remote families that live on Navajo Nation reservation and do not have access to pipe water systems currently. And the chapters have been really integral in helping us identify the families in most need and most remote, where we can reach out to them, have a conversation about what this technology is, the role it can play and how it can help, and provide one to willing families. We've also trained and roughly 15 members of Navajo Nation to be technicians and do the installation and servicing work for this project. We brought them on board through Aerotech, a firm, and they have been a wonderful team to work with to carry out this work every single day. And again, this contract that we are currently executing is to provide a standard 4 hydro panel system plus a tap inside the home, as well as an extended warranty and maintenance package for 506 homes on Navajo Nation. We are a little more than 50% completed. Most of our work has been in the western side of Navajo Nation. It's where we started, where we had most contacts with chapters, and we knew broadly, the area, the former Bennett Freeze area, was an area of least infrastructure development that may be in the most need. So that's where our work has started. We will soon be transitioning over to the eastern and central sides to provide these systems to families in chapters in that region. Again, 506 families is not enough to meet the needs of the nation by any means. This is really an effort to demonstrate the capability, to help educate and learn from the community how to use this tool in a way to help people in the most, and where that can be, and hopefully create dialogue and some consensus to understand how can this be a helpful tool for the nation into the long term. In the presentation, I hope you should see several pictures of the installations that we have completed over the past several months, and even some from last year. For example, some of our early projects were with the Johns Hopkins University and other partners. And again, these systems are designed not to provide all the water needs for a family for showers and toilets and livestock, but this is really to ensure that every family has their own clean drinking water supply for long into the future. And so I have some data to share from the results of the systems that we have deployed so far with the members of the committee to hopefully also paint a picture of the impact that this project is having. So, many of our sites are in very remote places where the communication systems there are not strong. So we don't have data from every site that we've completed, but this is what we have from the sites that we do have data from. And on average, our 4 hydro panel system that every family gets as a part of this project is making about 3 to nearly 4 cases of 24-pack bottled water each week on average. So that's how much drinking water we're providing to families on average across the nation. Again, about 3 to 4 cases of 24 packs. It's nearly 100 bottles of water a week. So again, you can see this is really designed for drinking water for human consumption at a high quality, not for the full domestic needs. We hope this is a supplemental supply. Of the sites that are sharing data with us, we know that 90% of the families that receive these systems are drinking the water every week. And we can see that activity of water being consumed. And when this project is complete, if we were to look at the big picture, these systems all taken together will create enough water to offset over 2 million single-use plastic water bottles from having to be used and discarded on Navajo Nation alone every year for the next 15 years. So a sizable portion of plastic waste offset and ability to provide a volume of drinking water to very remote families. And if we assume, that families would be buying a case of water from Basha's for say $3 each, then these projects will save each of these families a little bit more than $500 every year on average. And that's just for the cost of the water. That's not accounting for the cost of fuel to go to the store to buy it or the time it takes to spend doing that activity, but just on the cost of water, saving families from having to buy expensive single-use plastic water bottles. So at the big picture, I'm hoping to provide Chairman Nez, yourself and members of the committee a sense of what, the big picture on a capability like this and how it can be a useful tool. We've learned that there are roughly 7,000 homes is a number that we've heard of families living without clean access to clean drinking water in their home today. I don't know how much it would cost to provide them all with water lines or how long that would take, but to provide every family with a source hydro panel drinking water system would cost about $80 million and be done, completed work in about 24 to 36 months. So that's really the full scope picture of how this can be a useful tool. Going in more specifically, I found the Indian Health Services Sanitation Deficiency System list for fiscal year 2021, the IHS SDS list. And I looked at all the projects in that list and just focused on the waterline extension projects that the IHS considered economically infeasible, as in the cost per connection was too high. So I got rid of all the ones that were feasible, that were being funded and being carried out. We know there's a lot of great projects happening, just to focus on the people who are going to be the most challenging to reach. And that was a list of comes to a list of about 200 projects that will impact the lives of roughly 2,600 families. These are families that are deficiency level 4 and 5, of most acute need of clean drinking water. And of all these families, the average cost per connection to provide a water line out there is over $160,000 per home. And taken it together, the IHS believes it would cost roughly $350 million to provide water lines to these families, and over an unknown timeline. It is absolutely critical that every family gets access to clean drinking water. And we know that there are real challenges in making this happen. And so for these families, for these 2,600 families, where it's most economically infeasible for waterline extension projects, we hope that Source can provide some answer for some way to support with drinking water at a minimum, to make sure that there's a baseline, that everyone has drinking water. And we can do that for less than 9% of what it would cost the IHS to run water lines out there. And we can complete that in a period of 18 to 24 months at a tiny fraction of the cost per connection. And I think this is just a helpful illustrative example. You know, again, not trying to say that you should do Source instead of water lines to homes. It is absolutely critical for many reasons that families have access to pipe water in their home. But I'm trying to just focus on those who are at the bottom of the list, so to speak, that will take the longest to support, and how our tool can be a helpful way to reach them in the short term to improve their public health and basic safety amidst the pandemic and into the days and years beyond. So, in the conclusion of my remarks, again, very excited and eager for this conversation and opportunity to present, Chairman Nez, to you and members of the RDC committee about our desire to partner with the nation to empower these remote families to harvest their own drinking water now and leapfrog all of the challenges with centralized infrastructure, and leapfrog them to provide them with their own drinking water supply by equipping them with these drinking water systems that gives them a tap inside their home that they can drink from, and hiring and training Navajo technicians to do the important work and support their own communities. And I have two small asks, Chairman Nez, for you and members of the committee for consideration. I'll conclude my remarks. Is that one, if you think it's appropriate and informative, I would be honored for an opportunity to present to the full council at an upcoming meeting or an AVI meeting, if you find that appropriate, to inform colleagues as well of this effort underway and general tool and capability. As well as, you know, we are continuing the dialogue with Navajo Nation Department of Water Resources about more ways this tool can be helpful. And it would be helpful for their office to hear from members of the committee and others of support of using this tool to help support families with drinking water access in a new way. So I know I have said a lot. I'm sure there are many questions. I will be happy to spend as much time as necessary, Chairman and members of the committee, to answer your questions. And so thank you again for this opportunity to present, and that concludes my report for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second.
One motion, Chair.
Honorable Freeland.
Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Goddard? Naidos Kidishan and
Chairman.
Honorable Freeland, go ahead.
Chairman, thank you. Other colleagues, staff, Mr. Goddard, thank you for the presentation. This is Delegate Mark Freeland. I'm out of Eastern Navajo, and I have one chapter that there's 38 families right now that don't have any running water or indoor plumbing. It'd be great to see this innovative tool in action, and it'd be great to see how it works in person. We have a lot of chapters, especially in rural communities, that a lot of our people have to haul water, yes, continuously, especially drinking water. I have 3-4 of those chapters are in my area as well, 5. But how can we, get more information, or how can we work with you all to identify specifically, especially our elders? It would be so beneficial to them to provide clean drinking water to them. Our children as well, our young families. But I'd like to see more, and I think as a committee, maybe a demonstration, and even what you recommended, a presentation to full council, but I'd like to see a demonstration beforehand. If we can. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Goddard.
Thank you, Delegate Freeland and Chairman Nez, for the question and for the comments. we welcome your input and information on the chapter and those families that you mentioned to try to involve them in the current project that we have now. We are nearly fully subscribed, please follow up. We have a great ability to work with chapters to help identify those living most remote and elders that need the most assistance. So welcome that feedback, and I'm happy, Delegate Freeland, to send a message to you to try to understand that. And would again welcome an opportunity to, would invite yourself and any other members of RDC to come visit some of the sites that we have already completed as a part of this project. Again, most are in the kind of western and central side now. We will be moving to the Gallup area shortly and completing projects on the eastern side of Navajo Nation. And so I'd be more than happy to invite all members to visit sites, to see it, to hear from recipient families directly, and make sure that you have a better understanding of this tool and its capability and ways it can be supportive. So thank you for the comments. I'll be sure to follow up, Delegate Freeland. Thank you.
Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions?
Chairman.
None. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chairman, though, members of Resource Development Committee, ato staff, to thank you, Mr. Goddard, for the presentation. It's good to hear from you again. We've had the chance to meet out at a demonstration site in Cameron a little over about a year ago. I was impressed with what I saw there and heard directly from the residents that were given this equipment, this piece of equipment. And I could tell that they were beginning to learn about it and beginning to learn how to use the equipment for their home use. And I was, appreciating the, at the time you were starting out to reach out to other community members in Cameron and then the region there. And then, of course, now you're, I think you've reached out to the greater region out in the Western Navajo Agency. I appreciate that. And again, the information that you provided at the time is certainly the same information you're providing today to the RDC leadership here. And I don't have any questions, just pondering on what the future looks like, the future of the equipment and with tribal nations. I think tribal nations are the populations that probably have the most need in this way. Drinking water, clean, not only clean but safe drinking water, and then not only that but affordable water coming to their homes. So I would think your organization has reached other tribal nations as well. If you can give me an idea or give us an idea of what plans are for providing clean, safe drinking water, not only to Navajo, but to other nations as well, I think that really would speak to us. It's one thing just to offer support and help, but demonstrating it, then that, I think that speaks very loud for some of us. And your offer to help more Navajo communities, Navajo families, Navajo individuals, that also speaks volumes. So I appreciate the presentation here this morning, and just like I said, pondering on the future. What does the future hold, short term, and then long term, long range for Navajo Nation? It would be a while before I think Navajo Nation and the federal government to provide potable water, safe drinking water to each and every home. I think that's maybe decades away. In the meantime, you have this solution that seems to be in the hand that can get in the hands of our people rather right away, rather quick, almost overnight. So with that in mind, I think the nation could closely listen to the presentation again and observe the demonstration and, start planning for a future with these kinds of innovation and amazing products, technology that's now available. So just thinking about the future a little bit in that way. Again, it's good to hear from you again, Mr. Goddard. We did meet with some chapters over the phone, and I certainly appreciate that also. Then the other area is the Indian Health Services, whose trust responsibility is to provide, water and sanitation facilities, those kind of resources to Indian nations as well as certainly Navajo. And they are certainly behind. And in a lot of ways, I want to too many ways to mention how much deficient they are in this area, providing that resource, and how they're not keeping up with a responsibility, a trust and sacred responsibility. So that's as political as I can get right now. Otherwise, I can take it pretty far, like most tribal advocates, tribal leaders do, out of frustration, So anyhow, Mr. Chair, I make my comments that way and appreciate the time given. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Goddard.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker Jr. It is great to speak with you again as well, and I appreciate your comments and remarks. You have several points in there that I'd like to speak to and a follow-up. Did my best to take notes. The first one is what other tribal nations have we been in discussions with? And we really do see ourselves as a useful tool for tribal nations and other rural and remote communities throughout the southwest part of the United States and frankly in other parts of the world to provide a drinking water supply where it's needed most and where it's most challenging with conventional water infrastructure. We have a demonstration site on Hopi Nation and are in discussions and presented a similar report to their tribal council. We do have a project with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs in Central Oregon as well, that we also started last year, and it's still in a growing phase of growing larger. They used a portion of their CARES Act funding as well as some private donations to build a centralized water farm in the center of their community. So they live in a much more densely packed area. And so instead of doing projects at homes like we have done here with Navajo Nation, they wanted and recommended a centralized location. So we've built the first phase of what we call a source field or a water farm to provide a centralized location for members of the community to come and fill up their own 2-gallon, 5-gallon jugs to put in their refrigerator and drink from and come back and fill as they like. And the goal there is to provide some immediate relief to the community. This is also a community that has struggled with aging water infrastructure for many, many decades. That has led to constant boil water advisories and unsafe water for consumption. Most people buy, again, single-use plastic bottled water or rely on donations of the same. And so this was the first phase, was to provide a system size to meet the needs of the community. But the hope of the the tribes there are to use this as an economic development opportunity to allow the tribes to set up a new bottled water company and package the water and distribute it as a new sustainable, renewable drinking water made from the air throughout the Pacific Northwest. Now, we are very much taking their lead on that expansion and at their pace that they find appropriate. But that has been the kind of two-pronged project that we have started and are continuing to expand with the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. And we are actively trying to introduce ourselves and demonstrate our capability to other tribes throughout the U.S. and abroad, so that we can be a helpful tool to reach those families who may need it most. We've had discussions with IHS as well. They are aware of our capability. They have made it clear to us that they follow the lead of the tribal nations they serve. And so, I'm very hopeful that we can continue discussions with them and, alongside members of each tribal nation to see how we can meet their needs, right? In the ways that I mentioned earlier. So we know that they have quite a long list of projects to do, and we're hopeful that we have a capability that can, like I said, help meet the drinking water needs of many of those people on that list, to provide support before they're able to get their pipe water systems that they rightfully deserve and should receive. So we are very grateful for the input, like I said, yourself, Vice Chairman Walker, and other members of the council, and many sort of chapter leaders that have been instrumental in helping us connect with the elders and other families who live very remote, that they know they need assistance. They help guide us in this project that we're doing now to help reach them and provide support. I would really like to thank the technicians that we've hired through Aerotech from Navajo Nation, and the support staff that are able to talk to the families and meet them where they are and explain how the technology can play a role in providing a drinking water supply. When we really look forward to more conversations as appropriate with members of the Navajo Nation and with chapters and with families, that we really hope that over the long term, as we continue to innovate on the core technology and make more water and make them smaller and all that we can continue to be a helpful tool for the nation to secure drinking water for all of its people long into the future. So thank you again, Chairman Walker Jr. and Chairman Nez for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? None? Thank you, Mr. Goddard, for providing your presentation to RDC. Certainly appreciate it. I believe if you'd like to provide the presentation to Navigate Committee, you may request it through the Speaker's office also. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Neza. We'll do that. Thank you so much for the opportunity and time today.
Okay. Shananta, we'll go ahead and accept the report. There is a motion and a second. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Gay is excused. Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
Chairman, I vote green.
Honorable Daniels? Honorable Daniels? We have a vote of 3 in favor.
Mr. Chair, I vote green.
Okay, thank you. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Goddard.
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels?
Yes, at the beginning, when we were doing announcements, I got dropped. My call got dropped. Today there's BNF meeting that's going on right now. I have a legislation on that side, so I'm going to be going back and forth on it. But those that's just for your information. Thank you.
Okay, we'll make a note of that, Honorable Daniels. Thank you. B, on receiving reports. Update report on water restrictions and NTUA's water data log. Presenter, Mr. Rex Kuntz. You have 20 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir, and members of the RDC committee. We appreciate the time. We did send out a document, and it was redistributed again today. It's titled just Intua's report on our systems, and to make it as clear and as simple as we can possibly make it, we provided a little drawing, and it shows a water tank and a well, and that's kind of the basic core of a water system. And the overall goal is that at the start of every day, the water tank is somewhere between 80 to 100% full, and that means the system's recharging during the quiet time through the night. And if that's working properly, that's the main indicator that your system is performing like it's supposed to. It's refilling on its own, and there's no adjustments that need to be made. Now, we monitor those tank levels, and if we find that the tank level is not recovering like it's supposed to, then that's where we start trying to determine what's going on. Is there a leak? Is there, water being used for some reason that's not metered? Is there any high users that are moving large volumes of water for non-drinking purposes? So that's the flags that throw up, and we watch these a little bit closer during the summer months, because we do have some systems that are a little stressed, meaning that we're currently looking at the water source, and we may need to be pursuing funding or avenues to add water source. So the second thing that we look at is the pumping hours at the well house. And your well should be pumping 12 hours or less within a 24-hour period. So 12 hours or less means that it's pumping, and you have half a day for the water table to recover and to recharge. And if we start going over the 12 hours, then we know that we have a source shortage. 12 to 18 hours, we actively start looking for additional source. We may apply for grants, dollars, self-fund, where we can generate the dollars. And the critical systems are when you go over 18 hours to 24 hours a day, where the pump is pumping around the clock. So we had some systems that got into that critical stage due to some real high volume users that were hauling large 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 gallon tankers, and they weren't hauling this just once in a week or so. They were filling up multiple times. And two of the groups that we know that perform this type of function is Dig Deep is one organization, and Water Warriors is another organization. And what they did was during the pandemic, they went out and solicited customers that needed water to be hauled to the home, and they created a listing of clientele. We were not part of that planning process, and we weren't able to coordinate with them to determine where the strongest systems were. So in order for our systems to get back out of the critical stage, we had to cut back somewhat. We sent out a notice for everyone to reduce. This is self-management, self-conservation. We're asking everyone to reduce to 10%, less 10% less than their normal uses. For the large water haulers, the two groups, we've had phone meetings with them. We asked them to cut back somewhat, but also to give us a listing of their customers by location so we can direct them to the stronger water systems. They have some operations in some of our systems that are not very strong, and we discourage them from using those systems, but they they went ahead and started using them. So I think we have an understanding with those groups, and we're trying to manage it so that the system stays in service and that everybody has access to the system to continue to move water, both through the pipe and also through the hauling systems. Once we get their data by location, we can direct them to stronger sources and hopefully minimize those areas. We actually had one system that drained to zero, and everybody was out of water, and we had to turn the watering point off until the system recovered, and it took about 3 or 4 days for that to happen. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want those situations to happen again. What we also provided you was a listing of all the tanks within our district offices that they have jurisdiction over, and a listing of the wells. And so you'll see the data on the far right-hand side that shows the percentage of the tank at 6 in the morning. So we went out one weekend, we measured all the tanks for this report specifically, and you'll see the percentages. So those that are 80 and above are good. The ones that are less than that, those are the ones that we're watching. So 60, 70%, we're just keeping an eye on those. If you start getting down below that to 50%, 40%, we have big concerns there, and we have to make sure that we manage those things proactively so that we don't drain those tanks. Now, on the wells, you'll see a hour pumping. So the hours listed are within a 24-hour period. From midnight to midnight, we measured how much water was pumped, and the hours gives you whether the well is staying within that 12-hour target or less than 18. It's still in a somewhat critical state, 18 and less, but those that are over 18 to 24, those are areas where we really do need to work on trying to restrict and conserve the water so that we don't take those tanks to the point where they're draining completely. We did have, during our process of collecting that data, we had outages. We did this over the weekend before the meeting, and we had some outages, so people were pretty busy. We also had heavy rains and some flooding, and that caused some access problems. So you may see some odd numbers like zeros, and those are just areas where we were unable to get to either a tank or to the well to get the reading. We do have a number of wells that are on an automated system where we can collect some data remotely, and we are systematically over time trying to upgrade and create the automation at all sites so that we don't have to necessarily go and take a physical reading. But not all wells and tanks have those automated controls at this point in time. We have over 368 tanks across Navajo and a little over 200 individual wells. And then there are other areas that feed off of an outside system. We receive water from Farmington, and that feeds everything from Farmington all the way out to Tis Naspas, and that water is treated through their treatment plant. Navajo does have water in Lake Nighthorse next to Durango, which can be released and fed to us, but it would still flow through Farmington's treatment plant. And the Navajo Gallup project will put another intake that will pull water out of the river around the Shiprock area, and then we will have the source access on Navajo after that point in time that will feed the San Juan lateral coming from Shiprock all the way into Yatahe and all the way into Window Rock area. So we provided that data for you to look at. We're not going to go through everything line item. There's hundreds of them to look at, but it gives you an idea of those two factors that we look at is the tank level first thing in the morning and our well pumping rate. So we do have a well renovation program where we go into the well, we check the pump performance, and if it's deteriorating through wear and tear, we'll replace a pump. We can also scrub the inside of the casing where the openings are that feed from the formation, the water formation, and we can open those openings back up, take out the mineral deposits, and recoup the well so that it continues to flow water freely. So those are done on a routine. Every well we go into on a 5-year cycle, and that's a routine process. So that kind of gives you an idea of the water management and what we're doing, what we're watching. Right now we're in a voluntary conservation mode. We're asking people to conserve voluntarily so that we can get through this. Now, the one last thing I wanted to present is we've had some really good monsoon rains. It's been great for greening up everything and refilling stock ponds, which helps with the stress on livestock as well as wildlife, and those things help so that people are not taking livestock water from the domestic system. It doesn't really recharge the groundwater. The groundwater is down in the bedrock. Our wells range anywhere from a few hundred feet all the way to 3,500 feet down into the bedrock where it extracts water. So it takes years for the water to seep down in through the bedrock to recharge those, and that recharge is primarily done by snowpack. So we've had several years of low to no snowpack, and so that's why our water sources are not as strong as they used to be. And if we do not get snowpack in the future, the situation can get worse. Once we have flowing water from the rivers up north, that will help supplement. So right now we do have water flowing from the Cutter dams into the Cutter lateral that ties all the eastern communities together with one source. They have a huge amount of water that's been negotiated under water rights. So we are planning to put more watering stations along that route so that not only will there be enough water for domestic uses, but there will be water available for livestock and construction purposes. And once 491 is completed, we intend to put more watering stations along that route, and there'll be much greater access and a little bit more liberty in what the water can be used for. So that concludes my report, sir, and we're open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kuntz. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second.
Chairman, I'm
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, this is Delegate Daniel. I'll go ahead and second.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any questions or comments for NTUA? We also have on the line with us Honorable Otto So. Good morning, Honorable Otto So.
Good morning, Chairman. If we can allow me time after the RDC members.
Okay. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any questions? Mr. Kuntz, just for your information, the request was made after Resource and Development Committee did their drought assessment tour across the Navajo Nation. And we were told that the water levels were decreased tremendously due to the mega drought. And I just want you to know that, Mr. Kuntz. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions? If not, I'll go to Honorable Oroso.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this dialogue with Nchiwe. Number one, I guess Nchiwe. I really appreciate this information pertaining to the water shortages in many communities, and especially my community, Tuba City. And just would like to see if I could get a hold of that information that you have provided. Number one is that Tuba City is a hub, and I think the larger communities are in the same boat. And in Tuba City, we service people always down as far as Cameron, Coal Mine, Tonlea, Copper Mine, all the way out to Gap, various parts of Gap, Ottaway, and for those purpose of water haulage, and also the information providing to what are the restrictions pertaining to the large communities. That information they just want, so that I can provide that information to my chapter. Then number two is that I guess is there any dialogue directly with the chapters out there by NTUA at the local level, so that if that's a thing that NTUA can provide to the local level at the chapter. That way the chapters can go ahead and provide that information, especially my chapter. They have access to their great website to provide information if NTUA needs to provide information. And I think Tuba City chapter would be able to assist you to provide that information on their website and on their chapter Facebook webpage. So, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable So. Mr. Combs?
Thank you, Honorable So, for your questions. We appreciate those questions, and definitely we can reach out to chapters, and I do see chapter websites on social media, and I think they're pretty good at communicating to their constituency. So I think that's a comment well taken. We will work on trying to reach out and provide data and meetings with each of the chapters regarding the water conservation effort. Tuba City is one of our stronger sources at the moment, and so I know there's several communities outside Tuba City that rely heavily on that watering point. It recently went down, but it was because of the power drop from the APS side, and the programming had to be reset. So we got that repaired and back up and running. But I can provide the data that we shared here with RDC with you, Honorable So, and so that you can see the status of the systems there that are managed by the Tuba City district. It not only includes Tuba City, but several other communities and their tank levels and sources. So we'll reach out specifically to your chapter, and then we'll work on trying to coordinate something with chapters across Navajo, at least to provide presentation data so that they can post those notices. One thing I wanted to clarify was there was on the watering points, there was a volumetric limit on the amount to be hauled per load, and that really was meant to target those large haulers that were taking multiple loads. We were not doing any kind of management around individuals that were filling up and taking water. We weren't trying to restrict residential use. We did want to slow down the large tanker uses, and we will probably recraft our communication to create some clarity. Right now we're looking at the conservation measurements and seeing whether we're seeing the drops that we need, and if we do that, then we should be in good shape through the rest of the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions for NTUA? Chairman. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Chairman of Resource Development Committee. Appreciate the time here. Mr. Coates, appreciate the report this morning on the water restriction. So appreciate the information and the different perspectives that would go along with water restrictions policies. I know water and its uses other than consumption or household use, domestic use. Water use other than that. In this case, you mentioned livestock, use for livestock or gardens. And then beyond that, commercial use, car washes, laundromats, swimming pools, and so forth. And then beyond that, other commercial or industrial use. How far off are we in terms of beginning to start using reclaimed water? That would be my question to NTUA as our utility company.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Yes. Can you hear me? Sure. Can you hear me?
Chairman's call may have dropped. Vice Chair.
Ms. Begay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, sir. I believe
Okay.
Vice Chair's call is also dropped.
Okay. Ms. Siako, are you still on the call? Ms. Siako? Shami, I keep getting taken off the call. I don't know why it's doing that, but I don't know who controls it or how it can help here. So
Chairman.
just for your information.
Chairman, I'm not sure as well. I sign up as being the host, but as we move along, other people log. See, right now I got muted again, and so I'm not sure who's really being the host here. But I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Siako,
Chairman.
are you on the call? Yes, Honorable Walker, we both got cut off, so go ahead,
Okay.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
I lost my train of thought here. Okay, so question to Mr. Kuntz. Questions around use of reclaimed water for commercial or industrial use. How far off are we to reach that ability or to start doing that? I don't know anyone that's using reclaimed water for like roads or car washes or laundromats? Or is that being done and we don't know about it, or I don't know about it? So I guess just a question in that direction, Mr. Kuntz or Chairman Nez. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Kuntz?
Thank you. That's a great question. The last time we had a meeting with Navajo EPA, they did not have a gray water standard. There was a chapter that had a consultant that was going to put in a device that would create gray water from their wastewater, and they were going to try to use that for irrigation for a chapter project, but EPA would not sign off on it at that time because they didn't have a standard. The second situation we have is we have wastewater that is treated to the point that it's approved to release into a waterway, and we've had requests by roads departments to use that water for compaction purposes, and we physically don't have a problem with that. We were setting up to do that in Chin Lee, and the EPA stopped us and said they were going to cite us for illegal release of wastewater, even though it was treated to the point of release. So we did have a meeting with then President Russell Begay and then the EPA director, and the dialogue there was he was directed to create a standard, and that director left. Another director came. We went through the same dialogue with him, and a standard still hadn't been created. And now we're into another director, and I haven't had a chance to sit down and meet with the new director, Belinda Shirley. So that's something that we have, on our list of things to do. With the pandemic, it was a little difficult trying to get meetings arranged, but that is an area that needs to have some standard created. N2A is more than willing to support reuse of water. It's just the regulators also have to agree on the methodology and what is allowed. I know, Honorable Walker, your LDA's had a lot of dialogue with our principal engineer with regard to some of that. So I think we're at a point now where we need to re-engage with the Navajo Nation EPA director and reopen that dialogue. There's a lot of potential for it, and I think from a conservation standpoint, it's an important way of making a secondary use of water. So we support the ideal completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuntz. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? None? Hakushila is none. I will go ahead and accept the report from NTUA. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay is excused. Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
Chairman, I vote green.
Honorable Daniels? Honorable Daniels? We have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. Shananta. The office is experiencing bad connections to the internet, and that's why we're getting dropped every once in a while, just for your information. Next, update report on the status of heavy equipment, Sanction chapters, ARPA chapters, and monsoon relief. Presenter, Dr. Pearl Yellowman. Dr. Yellowman, you have 20 minutes.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, Chair Nez, and to honorable members of the RDC Resource and Development. We have several items on the list to be reported on. And I also have ASC, Ms. Salatza, Jim Martin on the call to report on Sanction chapters. So I'll just kind of go in no particular order, but I'll start with the ARPA. We are sending the ARPA report to Shami, and it is also up on the screen. Can we get on the screen? Okay, if you are able to see, we'll go ahead and start here. So the Division of Community Development, we started to solicit for chapter project listing.
Dr.
Division
Yeoman,
of, yeah.
Shami, before you proceed, can you? I got muted again. Can you resend the document, please?
Okay, it'll come from Shayla Draper.
Thank you.
Okay. So back in May, we started to, I guess, kind of mobilize and prepare for ARPA. We did set up a website dedicated to a solicitation for the 110 chapters. Some of the chapter projects, we were asking or requesting from chapters to review some of their priority projects. Those priority projects are already housed at the chapters. Those are often chapter projects. Some of them are already listed in the CPMD infrastructure projects like Sihisan. And then we have some regional projects. Some of those regional projects are listed here. There were larger regional county projects. And then we have special projects or specialty projects. The specialty projects, some of them are not in the ICIP, Navajo Nation ICIP, nor were they in the New Mexico ICIP because they're brand new. And some of them are a result of what we experienced last year with COVID, such as warehouses, and plus the new arrivals of heavy equipment. So many of the chapters were wanting to inquire more about warehouses for storage of protective gear and the heavy equipment as it related to COVID. We solicited for projects. We received 558 projects. Did you send it? Oh, okay. So the report was sent to you, Shami. We received 558 projects on in our DCD portal. You can see here on our slide that 42% of those came from New Mexico, and the remaining 53 roughly represented Arizona chapters. In total, RDC members with the 110 chapters, 558 projects, it was roughly estimated at 1.1 billion. Arizona, go back one slide. Arizona represented a little more at 562 million, and New Mexico at 517 million. Since the arrival of these submissions, our staff had gone into verifying and looking and reviewing these cost estimates on these projects. Some of the projects that we received, their cost estimates came from the ICIP, which was fairly accurate. but many of the bathroom additions and some other projects varied. That's where we had staff spend a significant amount of time verifying some of those costs. So this kind of just shows you by state the amount requested to DCD ARPA submission. This slide here shows the cost requested by the 24 delegate regions. So by delegate region, we broke down how many chapters, all 110 chapters submitted for ARPA requests or ARPA proposals. And each of those requests we allocate or we compiled by delegate region. So you can see by each delegate how much their chapters were requesting for. It did vary. It varied significantly. And one of the highest requests was at 119 million. And I believe the lowest request was at 11 million. So it varied almost 100 million in difference. We'll go on to the next slide here. Of the 558 projects, a significant amount of projects were in the planning phase. 48.2% of those 500 plus projects were in the planning phase. 12.5% are in the design phase. And 23% are in the construction phase. This is pretty important to us. This kind of helps us look at our priority 1 and priority 2 A&E firms and construction firms or construction companies. It also helps us look at when we do get to that stage, how to align year 1, year 2, and year 3 as they are determined by eligible projects under the ARPA language, the federal guidelines. Those are to be determined by DOJ. But once these projects, I don't want to skip around all over the place, but I just want to add that under legislation 11021 that was signed into law yesterday, it does state in there that DOJ will be the determining factor of interpreting and determining those eligible project listings of what is eligible and not eligible. And it also states that an application process will be developed under the ARPA office. So once that application for projects begins, that's when we start to design year 1, year 2, based on our resources. And by resources, I mean our A&E firms and our construction companies that can really manage collectively 1.8 billion in projects. So this slide is really important. It helps us formalize how we start to align these projects. So this particular slide is really important to us. The project type of submissions by the 110 chapters were power line, house wiring, water, wastewater projects, bathroom additions, solar, rural addressing, warehouse, and other. Other varied from renovations to youth centers, to gardens, to some planning. So we do have an other category. The largest was bathroom addition. Also, to add to that, the largest for bathroom addition is also the project that requires the most coordination. this project requires us to work with NTUA, NECA, IHS, Lands Department, and DCD. We've been facilitating weekly conversations on the bathroom addition. There's a significant amount of information required just to compile the bathroom addition listing. Because of the language in ARPA, the ARPA funds were dedicated to water, wastewater, and broadband. But it's important to note that when we look at bathroom and bathroom additions, in order to give the whole full total package of the bathroom, a working, functioning bathroom, we do look at avenues of power line, solar, all of the types of cistern and septic, all of the water, wastewater functions of the bathroom addition. So we have been meeting weekly, like I said, with NTUA, NECA, IHS, I didn't mention IHS, and Lands Department, and the chapters. We will be hosting a orientation soon on the bathroom additions for the chapters that have submitted for bathroom addition requests. Based on what the original submission was, we have close to 2,100 bathroom addition requests. We have enough information, roughly around 1,800 of location points, GPS points, but we do need additional information from the local communities. So we will be working with ASC to schedule those bathroom addition orientation with NECA. And the details of that information will be shared during those orientation meetings. We have some recipient names. So that's the detail of the bathroom additions. So the other items that were requested were, like I said, solar. Rural addressing was another high requested project, and then the warehouse. So we'll go on to the next slide here. Here's some cost estimates, or here's some costs by bathroom additions. What we received in request was around 100 million, house wiring at 18 million. The other significant cost related to the other category was around 500 million, and rural addressing at 21 million. Warehouses, that was one of the a big request that I mentioned from the chapters at 110 million, but it was really the water wastewater projects and the power line. Water wastewater project was the #1 requested $4 amount at 305 million. So just kind of wrapping up here, Chair, where we have been moving towards now is we've been transitioning into developing the ARPA office. We do have the leadership meeting coming up, but as far as the chapters and what DCD represents, we have in the other category, we also receive project requests for NDOT. Those projects went directly to NDOT for vetting. Some chapters submitted economic development related projects such as C-stores or an economic development related project. We sent those to Division of Economic Development. Chapters also submitted in the other category, windmill and ag related repairs and infrastructure projects. We sent those to Division of Natural Resources, and the projects that remained just at DCD is what we've been vetting and reviewing and staying in communication with the chapters. My goal is to try to reach out to all of the 24 delegates just to review their project listings with what they received or what their chapters submitted just for concurrence. Unfortunately, I just have not been able to quite do that. I've had informal conversations with many delegates with their chapters, and also visited numerous chapters with the Office of the President and Vice President, kind of concurring and listening to their presentations, and actually going out to site visits to visit community members and some of the infrastructure that has been identified as a high need. Some of those were housing, water requests, power line. Those have been across the board some of the greatest needs. We've also been in dialogue and conversations back to the ARPA office. Under the umbrella of the ARPA office are 3 categories of support that would house the ARPA office. That's the support through OMB and OOC and DOJ. The other is the regulatory. Those conversations have been ongoing with BIA, Division of Natural Resources, the Lands Department. And so when we have these house visits, or when we have these chapter visits, a lot of those conversations come back down to some of the regulatory challenges that we encounter and we face. And then the other category, or the other support group under the ARPA office, is the Infrastructure Delivery Group. And I mentioned many of those members that we have been meeting. We kind of facilitate and drive that portion of the delivery, or the ARPA office, and that's the infrastructure delivery component. Not just for the bathroom additions, but really how we're going to complete all of these ARPA projects. So Chair, that's kind of the overview of what has been submitted on behalf of the 110 chapters. We continue to reach out to those chapters. Our Division of Community Development, CPM staff, and ASC and CHID staff all have been providing technical assistance. We've had numerous orientations during the ARPA submission process, and then provided technical assistance hours to chapters on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, and continue to keep in communication with chapters that may be missing information or are submitting supporting documents. And that's fine, because we encourage that. Some chapters have requested to submit additional information. And it's important that they have the opportunity now rather than the legislative session, because that can get complicated. So we're trying our best to really begin to form what would be packaged for legislative consideration. So Chair Nez, that's just an overview of the ARPA projects for the 110 chapters. On a side note, the Division of Community Development, we are interested, or we would like to submit some projects for the division, and that's the rural addressing and components of the solid waste plan, and much needed services for solid waste management. So Chair, that's one section of our report this morning. The other section is the sanction chapters. So Chair, I can take questions, or if you'd like, if I can turn the time over to Ms. Sunlots to Jim Martin.
Dr. Yellowman, you all may continue and complete your presentation. I did provide you 20 minutes. You have expended 19 minutes, and I will ask my colleagues, honorable colleagues, if we could provide them at least 10 more minutes. And Ashbiga. If there are no objections, Dr. Yellowman, you have 10 more minutes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Nez. And at this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Sunlots to Jim Martin for the sanction chapter update. Thank you.
Yat Eshanand, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, honorable delegates, members of the RDC committee. This is Sanlatsa Jim Martin. I am the ASC department manager and will be providing a status report on the sanction chapters. First, I'd like to thank Honorable Delegate Mark Freeland for providing a overview to our DCD leadership regarding the restoration of our land up in our Colorado area. We did have a good meeting with some chapters and want to thank the RDC committee for pressing on the issue, as that is something that will help our chapters. To begin with the status sanction chapters, we do have 9 chapters that are under sanction. I'll read off those chapters and also provide a written report. Our first chapter sanctioned is Alamo chapter. They've been sanctioned since 2017. Bosla Twin Lakes chapter has been sanctioned since 2016. Crystal chapter sanctioned since 2018. Loop chapter, which is a certified LGA chapter, they have been sanctioned since March 2018. Mariana Lake chapter, they've been sanctioned since 2016. Rama chapter has been sanctioned since 2012. Sanasti chapter has been sanctioned since 2019, right before the pandemic. And White Cone chapter was sanctioned since 2018. And lastly, we have White Horse Lake chapter, which has been sanctioned since 2016. Just to go into a little history, we did have a delay with addressing findings and corrective actions due to the pandemic and many of the chapters being closed, many of our chapter staff becoming sick from COVID, and also our ASC staff assisting with the emergency response. So we are now at a point where we have our chapters back in full operation. Many of our chapters, the staff are getting back to addressing their findings. And this is an update in coordination with the Office of the Auditor General. I know Helen Brown is also on the call to answer any questions. We do appreciate their coordination and collaboration as we assist our sanctioned chapters through ASC. We have 3 chapters that are pending sanction that I just want to bring to your attention. These chapters that are pending sanction will include Hard Rock chapter under Delegate Jimmy Yellowhair. The chapter staff at Hard Rock that are the lead include their AMS, Christina Karangis, the chapter president, Jay Begay Jr., and we have ongoing technical assistance provided by ASC staff with the leadership of Egerton Jean. Another chapter that is pending sanction is Tohajale chapter. The chapter lead staff is Sherilyn Apache under Delegate Jimmy Henyo, and also with the leadership of chapter president Jimmy Secretero. Our ASC staff that provides ongoing technical assistance is Garina Atakai. We also have another pending sanction chapter, which is Ojeto chapter. Lead staff member is Peggy Abrigo. She's the AMS. The chapter president is Willis Begay, and the council delegate is Herman Daniels Jr. We do have technical assistance that is also ongoing with our ASC staff, Mr. Calvin Sosi. For our RDC committee members, I just want to let you know that we did get some chapters out of sanction, and we were very thankful to the chapter staff and the leadership for helping those chapters get out of sanction. And unfortunately, we now are bringing 3 more chapters that could be potentially in sanction. So it's an ongoing process. We do have success stories of getting chapters out of sanction, and then we move into the direction of assisting other chapters that are pending sanction. Right now, we are working with our ASC Baca Gallup service area to help the satellite chapters that are under sanction more aggressively. We do have Garina Adakai, who's our ASC staff member, who's been making more frequent visits to provide in-person technical assistance and training to Alamo chapter, led by chapter staff Inez Apachito and chapter president Virgil Sandoval. We also have Rama chapter that we are working with from ASC. We are moving into the direction of assisting Rama chapter with their MIP system, which will help them with their sanctions. Their lead team there is CSC staff member Brenda Yazzie and chapter president Mr. David Jose. We do work with Honorable Jimmy Henyo to address the satellite chapters as they are more unique in their situation and technical assistance can be challenging. With our Eastern Agency sanction chapters, Whitehorse Lake continues to work with our ASC staff, Mr. Casey Begay. We do have our chapter staff leader, Angie Burnside, and chapter president, Art Lee Chavez, working closely with our delegate, Daniel So. We also have Mariana Lake chapter that has completed all their findings. We're very happy for Mariana Lake chapter as they worked hard at addressing their findings with the assistance of ASC Ms. Garina Adakai. The chapter lead staff is Leandra James. The chapter president is J.R. DeGroat under the leadership of Council Delegate Edmund Yazzie. For our 4 Defiance Agency chapters that are under sanction, Basla Twin Lakes chapter continues to work with their consultant and their ASC staff, Mr. Casey Begay. Their chapter staff lead is CSC Juanita Tom, chapter president, Mr. Norman John II, and with the leadership of Council Delegate Pernell Halona. Crystal chapter continues to work on their findings with ASC staff Patricia Begay. They only have 3 more findings to correct now, so we're very thankful to the staff and team that are working together at Crystal chapter. Chapter staff leader is CSC Jamie Bilson. Chapter president is Patricia Slim, and council delegate is Wilson Stewart Jr. We do have Western and Central Agency chapters. White Cone chapter is also addressing their findings due to short staff. We do have a little more work to do with White Cone chapter. We also have our certified chapter that is under sanction, that is Loop chapter. They are working on addressing their findings with their chapter staff and the leadership at the chapter. And lastly, we do have Northern Agency. Our only chapter is Sanasti chapter. They are almost complete with their findings. They have successfully worked together to address those corrective measures, and we are really thankful for the team that has helping from our ASC staff at Shiprock, ASC Miss Elizabeth Washburn. So Chair, not to take up too much time, I just wanted to quickly give you that overview. We are working on a 5 management system with the DOJ chapter unit, Mr. Roderick Begay. We want to make some recommendations for policy changes to help address these sanctions. And then we also are working and meeting with Helen Brown and her team to address other areas related to sanctions and corrective action plans. Our ASC staff continue to provide technical assistance and training. I'm very appreciative to all 8 service areas. Our team has been on duty since the pandemic started. We have not taken any time off, and I am very appreciative to the ASC staff for all their hard work and the success stories they are making with the chapters that are getting those corrective actions addressed. It does take teamwork to get a chapter out of sanction, and so we do encourage our leadership to help our staff and our chapter officials continue to work together to address their findings. With that, Chair, I thank you for your time and I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yellman and also Ms. Jim Martin. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second.
I'll motion, Chair.
Motion. Honorable Freeland, thank you. Second by? Second. Second.
Stewart will second.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Stewart. Any comments or questions for Dr. Yellowman and Ms. Jim Martin? None?
Chairman, I have a question. Freeland.
Honorable Freeland, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yellowman, your team at Division Community Development, all the staff, especially those who have been working tirelessly during the pandemic. Thank you. We definitely appreciate you all. My question really pertains to the heavy equipment portion of the discussion, and how has 008621 been beneficial or helpful to you all? The extension request that we passed. I hope everything's on time, or there's a timeline. You're meeting your timeline and your targets, that POs are still being processed and everything's still working. I guess we just want to make sure it's working for you all. If not, do we have to look at additional amendments or helping you all with this process? But just a question related to that extension request that we passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Dr. Yellowman or Ms. Jim Martin?
Thank you, Chair Nez. Thank you, Delegate Freeland, for the question. Just really quick regarding the heavy equipment, the total amount budgeted was $23,954,000. What we have expended as of to date is just around half. We have expended at $12,828,000. We also have funds in open commitment. There's just under 7 million in open commitment, and that's at 6.9 million for open commitment. And we have a remaining balance of 4.1 million. So I think that's great news. We do have our senior accountant here, Mr. Davis, who works closely with our heavy equipment team. I think we can complete the job here. There are some challenges. We still are seeing some national increases in steel for utility trailers. And then we have some challenges with chip shortages in some of the trucks. Some of the quotes that were submitted last year, if you recall, under 73-20, that was the original request for heavy equipment and items similar to heavy equipment. Those quotes represented 2020 when 73-20 closed, and then we started to look at a legislation for CJA 0121 from November to December and early part of January. We tried to capture those quotes. Since then, those quotes have expired, and we are having to look at other vehicles in the 2021 stock, and those are quite pricey. Or we're trying to stay within the appropriated amount per chapter based on those original quotes. But the team has been doing an excellent job navigating some of those. I know there's been some requests for updates from chapters. We do try to provide those updates. Just some internal challenges, and this is not to identify any individual, but just some challenges with the Motor Vehicle Review Board process and purpose. You know, I just trying to understand the purpose of and the importance of that, especially during a legislation that has a strict timeline. That's been one challenge. The other is just respectfully requesting for coordination with OMB and OOC as the directive came to all of us. But we have been doing our best to work collaboratively with OMB, OOC, so we do appreciate that. Anything to add? So thank you, Delegate Freeland. The extension was very helpful. We are still seeing a lot of deliveries being made, and there are deliveries this week. We continue to keep the chapters updated on those deliveries and leadership. Just seeing that the chapters really utilize these heavy equipment during the monsoon and rain last week. That was one of the prime reasons for investing in the heavy equipment, and the coordination between INDOT and the counties last week was critical in assisting community members. So we appreciate the leadership and the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Honorable members of RDC, any comments or questions? None. Hakushila, we'll go ahead and accept the report. Honorable Freeland, how do you go?
Chairman Green, I had a question too.
You want to vote and then have a question, or do you want a question first?
A question first, if I may, Chairman. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was waiting for my colleagues to respond before I wanted a follow-up question, Dr. Yellowman.
Go ahead, Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman and my colleagues, I think Dr. Yellowman brought up a very important point, and that's the Motor Vehicle Review Board. This legislation does not stipulate that these chapter heavy equipments need to go before the the Motor Vehicle Review Board. We lost two of my chapters lost trucks because of this situation, Lake Valley and Herfinale. And I don't know how we could address this or what needs to be done to address this, but because these are property of the chapter and not he's not a part of the fleet. OMB or OOC is making our chapters go before the Motor Vehicle Review Board, and it's time consuming, and they only meet like once or twice a month. And there's no need for this process because it's a different type of process, and the time constraint is real important. And dealers are not going to wait around with these quotes. They're going to get rid of these trucks. They're going to get them off the lot as soon as they can. And that's what happened to Lake Valley, and that's what happened to Herfinale. They lost these vehicles because they were told, or these Division of Community Development was told that these needed to go before the Motor Vehicle Review Board. So I don't know how we can address this, Chairman and my colleagues. We need to make something clear that these don't need to go before Motor Vehicle Review Board. So Eddie, I just wanted to mention that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Dr. Yellowman.
Thank you, Chair. In response, if I can, perhaps Mr. Davis, who is here with me, can just share just really briefly just the cycle in which we waited between the Motor Vehicle Review Board, the vendor, and then the approval. And but by the time that we received the approval from Motor Vehicle Review Board, we lost the vehicle, which then we had to get a new set of quotes and then go back to Motor Vehicle Review Board. We were stuck in a cycle that we couldn't get out of in some situations, but we can share and shed some light on that process. But we do have some recommendations. There are some requests under ARPA by chapters in the event that these are deemed eligible and we can proceed with a legislation for heavy equipment. We definitely would have some new recommendations on this issue. The other issue was some of the vendors were requiring some type of a good faith commitment that the payment would be made to those vendors if they were able to hold the item in inventory. That's something I think if we could establish a process in place, it puts the nation in a really good buying power situation, or the ability to buy and remain or keep the trust of those vendors. As it is, we in some situations lost that commitment from some of the vendors because we couldn't always remain in good faith that those payments were coming. So, but I do want to say that we have purchased so many heavy equipment in a short amount of time that, for the most part, has gone well. These are just some internal changes. Thank you, Chair Nez. Thank you, Delegate Freeland, for the question and comment.
Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Honorable Freeland, do you have any other follow-up questions?
Chairman, thank you. Not really a question, but more of a comment. In the future, how do we avoid this scenario? That way we don't find ourselves or find Division Community Development in these situations. How do we make it clear, maybe even the legislation, to start stipulating that these types of heavy equipment requests do not need Motor Vehicle Review Board. That way spelled out in black and white. So just a recommendation. And of course, if there's any other recommendations that the Division Community Development can share, that would be grateful or helpful as well, excuse me. But thank you, Chairman, thank you.
Dr. Yellowman, do you have a closing statement?
Thank you, Chair. We will provide those recommendations in writing for future reference if we encounter additional purchases. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? None. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay, excused. Honorable Vice Chair Walker? Honorable Daniels?
Chairman, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels? We have a vote of 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Yellowman. Number 6, old business, none. Number 7, new business. A, legislation 0115-21. We have Honorable Mark Freeland on the call with us. Ms. Begay, could you read this into the record, please?
Chair, hold on. I'm pulling up the document on my screen here. Okay, you have legislative summary sheet for tracking number 0115-21. The date on it is July 8, 2021. The title of the resolution, it's an action relating to resource and development and budget and finance committees. Approving a modification in the FY 2021 proprietary budget account, business unit number 115017 for the Navajo Nation Museum, an increase of $72,000 for the museum to resume and continue its operation. The purpose of this legislation is to approve a budget modification request by the Navajo Nation Museum to increase their proprietary account. This legislation is assigned to Resource Development and Budget and Finance Committee. Prime sponsor is Mark Freeland, and the legislation does reference exhibits. The legislation packets that I sent you will show you all of the exhibits that are referenced in the content of the legislation are attached to the packet. And it also includes DOJ's review, which is the 164 review form, Exhibit B. DOJ has comments there that it recommends approval of the FY22 proprietary budget account increase. The packet was posted on the council website on July 14, 2021. And the 5-day comment period ended on July 19, 2021. There was no comments received, and it is here before you for your consideration, Chairman and Resource Development Committee. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second. Motion.
Chairman, can I motion?
Could we have our
Chair,
colleagues
all
motion?
motions to Stewart.
Thank you, Honorable Stewart. Is there a second?
Daniel, second.
Honorable Daniels, thank you. Honorable Freeland, you have 20 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Colleagues of the Resource and Development Committee, staff, legislative, executive, and all of our Navajo Nation employees, good morning. Good morning to everyone. This legislation, colleagues, really pertains to requests from the Navajo Nation Museum. It's a request for increasing of the FY 2021 proprietary budget in the amount of $72,000. Now there's a exhibit that really explains the specifics as to the intent of this request. I do have my agent on the line, Mr. Manuelito Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler, are you on the line, sir?
I am here, Honorable Freeland and members of the Resource and Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to Mr. Wheeler and allow him to explain a little bit more thoroughly on this request and the need or the specifics related to this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Mr. Wheeler, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman Nez and members of the Resource and Development Committee. This is Manuelito Wheeler, Director of the Navajo Nation Museum. This is a real simple request as, right during COVID, the Controller's Office, they decided to give us way less than what we normally receive, basically less than half of what we normally receive in our proprietary account. And they did this based on the thinking that we were not going to be able to generate the revenue able to pay this proprietary amount back. But because of COVID, we've many tribal programs were displaced, and a lot of them came here to the museum. So we've been housing OMB, Parks and Recreation, and also we just recently got on the Office of the Water Rights Commission, which they just recently came on board. So because of COVID, they've rented almost every room in the museum. So because of that, we've been able to generate a lot of revenue. So we usually get in the amount, and it varies between 150,000 to 190,000 in our proprietary account. But this past fiscal year, they only gave us 70,000, and we've made far more than that, and we're on the track to make at least 150,000, and we'll probably make more than that. So that's why we've asked for this increase in the proprietary fund, and we're going through the process to get this money so we can help, get things rolling here at the museum again. A lot of that money will, be going into supplies for the museum and getting, just our normal day-to-day activities. Even this past year, we've had to lose just some general basic services, like we've had to return our Xerox machine that we would get from records, and just to save money because of that huge cut we took in our proprietary fund. But we really operated on a shoestring budget, but we'd like to get this money back again, just to get our daily day-to-day operations and supplies going again. Just to let you know, with the opening of the museum to the public, with COVID safety measures and following Navajo Nation guidelines on occupancy, it's every day our visitorship is increasing again. So right now it was just a large group of people coming to visit and look at our displays and so forth. So with that, we'd just like to ask for this increase to be approved. We're more than halfway. We've already made more than half of the revenue that we're asking. We've made about 36,000 of this 72,000, if not more. So we'll easily make the rest back by the end of the fiscal year. With that, I'd like to give it back to the committee. If you have any questions or comments, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Back to you, Honorable Freeland. Anything?
Thank you, Chairman, Resource Development Committee members, staff. That pretty much sums up the presentation, the request of this legislation. I ask for your support and your favorable consideration in passing this legislation. Thank you very much, Chairman. We'll stand for any questions now.
Thank you. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions on legislation 0115-21? No questions or comments, Shannon. I will go ahead and put it to a vote. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay is excused. Honorable Vice Chair Walker? You may have to press *6. Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
Yes, Chairman. Yes, I vote green.
Okay. Honorable Daniels?
I vote green.
You got to put down that mutton sandwich. Yeah, we have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries for legislation 0115-21. Honorable Freeland.
Colleagues, definitely appreciate support. Chairman, Edea, thank you. God bless.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wheeler, also. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Legislation zero, you're welcome. Legislation 0120-21, sponsor Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Ms. Begay, could you read this in for the record, please?
Chairman, this is Shami. I hope you were all able to upload your legislations. This morning I tried to send a copy of it. It's a huge volume, 217 pages. But Legislative Tracking sent you copies of the legislation on July 27th. You should have at least 2 copies of this, and I'll go ahead and begin reading the packet into the record. You have legislative summary sheet for tracking number 0120-21. The date on it is July 20, 2021. The title of the resolution is an act relating to Resource Development Committee approving the FY 2019 and FY 2020 Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan in the amount of $17,886,992. The purpose of the legislation, this resolution, if adopted, will approve the FY 2019, FY 2020 Road Fund Management Plan in the amount of $17,886,992. The legislation, RDC has final approval. The prime sponsor of the legislation is Wilson Stewart Jr. Excuse me. Tracking number 0120-21. An act relating to Resource Development Committee approving the FY 2019 and FY 2020 Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan in the amount of $17,886,992. Be it enacted. Section 1, Authority. A, the Resource Development Committee is the standing committee of the Navajo Nation Council and has oversight authority over roads and transportation to oversee planning and coordination of all roads and transportation activities of the Navajo Nation. 2 NNC Section 500C6. B, the Resource Development Committee has legislative oversight authority over the Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan. 12 NNC Section 1003B, see also BFMY 1614 attached as Exhibit F. And RDCJN 3614 incorporated by reference. C, the Resource Development Committee has authority over the Navajo Nation Division of Transportation, which administers the Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan. 12 NNC Section 1003C, see also BFMY 1614 attaches Exhibit F, and RDCJN 3614 incorporated by reference. D, the Navajo Nation Fund Management Plan at 12 NNC Section 1003A states that in quotes, the funding source of the Navajo Nation Road Fund shall be funds generated from the Navajo Nation fuel excise tax. The Resource Development Committee may appropriate all Navajo Nation fuel excise tax funds for administration costs, preliminary studies, road maintenance, road improvement activities to provide a common benefit across Navajo Nation lands, end quote. See also BFMY 1614 attaches Exhibit F, and RDCJ 3614 incorporated by reference. Excuse me. Section 2 findings. A, Navajo Division of Transportation, NDOT, has submitted the FY 2019, FY 2020 Navajo Nation Fund Management Plan in the amount of $17,886,992 to the Resource Development Committee of the committee's approval. The plan is attached as Exhibit A. B, the Navajo Division of Transportation submitted the nomination, Office of Management and Budget project budget summary sheet attached as Exhibit B. C, on April 21, 2021, NDOT provided a summary of the proposed budget project listing for FY 2019, 2020 road fund management plan in the amount of $17,886,992 attached as Exhibit C. Excuse me. D, on April 21st, 2021, NDOT Division Director through memorandum prepared and presented the FY 2019 and 2020 in Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan and reported there are enough funds for the $17,886,992 and requested a 164 review from the two NNC's section administrative reviews as Exhibit D. E, on June 3rd, 2021, Office of the Controller through a memorandum provided there are enough funds to cover the $17,886,992 that is being requested to attach as Exhibit E. F, NDOT Division Director provided the FY 2019, FY 2020 Road Fund Management Plan is submitted in accordance with BFMY 1614, which is a resolution addressed the need for road maintenance and road improvement using the Navajo Nation fuel excise tax revenue. See Exhibit F. Excuse me. G, the nomination Department of Justice determined the FY 2019, FY 2020 nomination road fund management plan is legally sufficient, attached as Exhibit G. H, it is in the best interest of the nomination for the Resource Development Committee to approve FY 2019 and FY 2020 nomination road fund management plan. Section 3, approval. The Resource Development Committee of the Nomination Council hereby approves the FY 2019, FY 2020 nomination road fund management plan in the amount of $17,886,992 attached as Exhibit A. The exhibits that are referenced in the content of the legislation, they are attached to the packets that were sent out, the budget forms. All of the resolutions that were referenced are also made a part of that packet. And the packet was posted on the council website on July 21st, 2021. The 5-day comment period ended on July 26, 2021. There was no comments received, and it is now before you for your consideration, Mr. Chair. And just letting you know that RDC will have final authority over this legislation. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay, for reading the legislation. Honorable members of RDC, let's establish a motion and a second.
Chairman, now motion Freeland.
Honorable Freeland, thank you. Second by is there a second? Sanand, Honorable
Second.
members of RDC.
Second.
Thank you. Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Stewart, you have 20 minutes, sir.
Augustin Shanai, Oyat in on Shanai, do Shanai, Kadosh, Yaja, Arosh, Aro is not Agi on the RDC call this afternoon, from this morning to this afternoon, out of the legislation and Linigi, AA, and Don. The legislation Linigi for road infrastructure, Minihagi, Okadoshi, Aya, and Don. Shafna Ash, Mr. Silversmith, the Mr. Bradley, the Beshakato was Lolation Bay, the Yada just situations. So, Shanai, if they're on the line.
Mr. Silversmith?
Yate? Yes, sir. Yate, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Chair Nez and Honorable Delegate Wilson Stewart Jr. and members of the Resources and Development Committee, all our partners, colleagues, and listeners on this call, this morning's call, this afternoon's call. Appreciate your participation this morning, this afternoon. So I'll quickly go into this legislation here. Thank you for the sponsor, Honorable Delegate Stewart, for presenting this before the Resources and Development Committee and all the contributors and people who put together the facts and information for this report. Naval DOT staff, our other partners and so forth, President Nez and Vice President Lizer, and the remaining members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. So the specifics of this legislation is, Honorable Delegates, is the intent is to provide some maintenance services, new construction services, and other projects that are related across the Navajo Nation. As we all know, many of our earth roads, paved highways, our bridges require immense loads of repairs and maintenance, and our present dirt roads require new construction. So we all experience these transportation assets in some fashion, both negatively and positively. So at the benefit of all travelers across who frequent our highway systems and our dirt road systems and our bridge systems, we provide to you in form of a legislation, a strategic approach on how we want to spend the $17+ million. So as we know, these funds were derived from the fuel excise tax road fund management plan. And therefore we combined 2 years worth of funds into this plan here. So what you see before you, excuse me, is over 30 projects that we want to try to address here in the next coming years. We identified approximately $3.2 million per each agency, and best as we could to strategically and equally distribute the funds amongst all the 5 agencies. So the scope of work of some of these projects are earth road improvements, culvert installation, design services for bridges, also pavement, our existing paved highways. We want to preserve those and maintain them to a certain degree, and also right-of-way fencing and the establishment of a maintenance yard on the Navajo Nation for the purposes of Navajo DOT to quickly respond to. There's other related projects as well in here. We have a request for equipment for our gravel pit operations, our chip sealing, and then we also have some money set aside for our highway lighting systems that we have established with our partners here. So unfortunately, this amount of money doesn't cover all our needs that we need across our great Navajo Nation. and it doesn't address each of our 110 chapters. However, it does produce some results as far as what we were able to do as best as we could with a limited amount of money. And with this, we tried to implement and strategically apply these funds across the Navajo Nation equally. And that's our intent here. So the production and the creation of this list was as the result over a year's worth of efforts on behalf of Navajo DOT staff, meeting with the chapter officials, with delegates, and just gathering their input. And once we gathered this input, we strategically applied that to a priority system. Many of these roads that you see on this list here are all bus routes, and they are all heavily traveled by some of us, each of us. And some of these roads exceed over 500 miles per day, or 500 vehicles per day. Some upwards over 1,000 vehicles per day. So with the assistance of Honorable Delegate Stewart and other delegates here, we were able to, list some of their priorities and needs across the Navajo Nation, and with input from President, Vice President, and this is just our approach to how we want to expend these $17+ million worth of funds here. And just presently, of course, the Navajo Nation is the recipients of American Rescue Plan Act funds. And so that's a great addition to our needs here as far as addressing our additional needs. And we plan to use those ARPA funds to supplement these projects that you see before you and other projects as well. So again, Chair Nez and sponsor Delegate Stewart and other members of the Resource and Development Committee, those are my brief comments and the explanation of the specifics and the intent of this legislation. So again, thank you, Chair Nez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silversmith. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any questions or comments? RDC has final authority on this legislation, and the Navajo Nation Road Fund Management Plan for $17 million. Colleagues, any comments or questions?
Chairman.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and committee members. Appreciate the time given here to ask questions and make comments. Although to this legislation, although sponsored, she get Delegate Stewart, sa benodit as aniko, link so zige the nation. And has the by Yelkito, that on Neko, Jean to Satan, Ashibe, Nik, Hadat, Ecoshi. And then your agent, Mr. Silversmith, thank you for speaking to the or explaining the legislation, the purpose and need for such legislation. I guess speaking from today's standpoint or today's need, from that standpoint, as currently we experience monsoon season, and we're still going through that. Monsoon weather affects roads, as we know, and varies in communities, 110 communities. Some are greatly affected by the monsoons. So I'm thinking the project listing that was referenced here in these documents for the agencies, those projects, they took time to identify, to find out which project is feasible, most doable. Okay, so they were done several months ago or more than a year ago, and then you go back to the same areas. Things may have changed. Roads are more some like I said, been affected by the flooding as a result of the monsoon. So we live in a ever-changing landscape and environment as far as roads and transportation is concerned. Over over in my area, I guess we say that because that's the area that we're most familiar with. And these are the areas where we get immediate feedback from our constituents. No time at all, somebody calls us and says, okay, here's the situation that's going on or that has happened. And then we're, of course, obligated to respond. So in the district that I represent, there are numerous roads that have changed. Just a couple of weeks ago, they were, fine, passage and safe. They're no longer passable or no longer safe. With respect to this funding, Joko, do you even reprioritize some of the needs as we sit here going through this monsoon season and experiencing flooding and muddy conditions out there? Joko, these projects that are set, are you able to shift that to other areas, roads that need immediate attention? That'd be my question, Chairman, to the sponsor and the agent. We'll await the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Silversmith?
Thank you once again, Honorable Chair Nez and Honorable Delegate Vice Chair Walker for that question and comment here. So some good points that you made there, Vice Chair, and I want to briefly touch on those items of comment that you provided to us. Specifically, you had mentioned the 30+ projects that you have before you in the form of this legislation here. Is this list in some manner reprioritized on a frequent basis? And yes, sir, this list that you have, or our internal list that we have with Navajo Division of Transportation, we have a prioritized list that we work off of, and this involves, as I mentioned earlier, involvement for our community efforts. So what you see before you was a list that was compiled over a year ago. So about a year ago, and since the inception of this list, the creation of this list to now, we went through various levels of review and approval and draft changes. So, and yes, in this time frame, in about a year, maybe our priorities may have slightly changed, and and at this point right now, due to the amount of rainfall and monsoon that we have been receiving, and we can take a look at and strategically say, yes, maybe we can remove this route, we can add that route, and that can happen. And this body, this committee is the oversight and the review, final approval for this list here that we have. But as I mentioned, it took quite a bit of work and involvement from everybody involved in the compilation of this list. So, but any time though, as we move forward with these projects, of course, the prioritization can change. But for the most part, what I think we all agree on is that these routes here have not changed in about a year. They all require some form of improvement. So, and these dirt roads, bridges, and highways that you see before you, the need is still there. Some may have changed slightly as far as their prioritization, but I believe I think most communities would support this list and say let's go forward with this list here. We still need these improvements here, and those other routes that need priority, we'll get them next year or this year's 2021's FET allocation. And so, Honorable Delegate Walker, we can meet with you and you and your community, and not just you, but the other 23 delegates, and work on the establishment of another list that we have forthcoming funds from the Navajo Nation's FET funds in the amount of around $7 million. And we can address this on those not secondary, but these additional priorities that we see when we travel on these routes every day and every week. Thank you, Chair Nez. That's my response.
Thank you, Mr. Silversmith. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, do you have a follow-up question?
Chairman, I have two phones. When one gives out, then I resort to the other one. So earlier, I just found that shot. I guess it was this one that we were on this meeting. The meeting was on this phone, but you just got the shot. I didn't know about playing Zoom. So thank you for this time again, Chairman, all committee members. Normally projects, community development projects or infrastructure projects, or in this case, road projects. So once council or divisions and entities approve projects for this year, we don't go in there and try to change or reprioritize as community leaders, as decision makers. Normally, that's the way it is. We go with what is approved, what was worked on, what was planned and proposed. But didi ani dahstana a team tahayila. A condition that last year, over a year ago. There's other areas in the same community that need more attention. That was just a point that I wanted to mention on that. If there's a need to go down that route, reprioritizing, I think just the need is justified. To do that is completely justified. The other situation that we are looking at we have seen now is sinkholes. Some of the communities that I represent, the roads where there were no sinkholes at all any time before, after decades and decades of having these roads, today there's sinkholes in some of them. How much attention that will get, how much what type of repair would go into such a state, such a condition of a road. Sinkholes, that's the new addition, new concern, new urgent matter in our communities. I know that the quick fix is probably just to fill in with gravel, the sinkholes, but we know that's not probably going to work, or it may work for a little while. I don't I just need a response on that, because that's going to be in our resolutions from the local chapters as we forward them to the Navajo Nation government, that there's a need to address sinkholes. The legislation, so the kid in the sponsor or agent or chairman or committee.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? None? Hakusila, we'll go ahead and vote on this. Nanda. Honorable Stewart, do you have anything to add? Honorable Stewart?
Okay, just that the support for this resolution or this legislation is appreciated, and also that there are other funds coming in the future that we can look at as far as roads go, prioritizing other roads within the communities that we serve, and also looking at other projects within the communities, not only for pavement, but also the subgrades and also the gravel. But this one here, the 2 years, is again for our bus routes as stated, and the roads that we are traveled on mostly within our communities. So our support for these and the funding that's going to be coming down again that we've been working with, and as stated yesterday during the signing, the infrastructure part of it with the roads, it's going to be coming down as well. The meeting that was held this morning as well, regarding the roads and infrastructure on that area, those areas as well as funding that we could look at and see how we can improve our roads again across the nation. And these are funds that we will continue to seek out and also have plans for, and get these out of the way from our communities so that all of our communities can have better roads and better ways of transportation for themselves. My idea, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I believe we're ready to vote on this, and we also have on the call with us Honorable Kealan Begay Jr. Welcome, Sitsela, for being on the call. We're getting ready to vote on this legislation 0120-21.
I have a comment, Chairman Kealan.
Honorable Begay, go ahead. Honorable Begay. Honorable Begay.
Chairman Thomas Walker.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker, go ahead.
Yes, while we wait for Honorable Begay, just lastly, making a comment here. As we speak, one of my chapters has gotten together a resolution, has acted on it in reference to road repair. I call it's on its way to Winderock to INDOT. So Mr. Silversmith, Ishida, I didn't eat as a result of the recent flooding. Immediately people alert and people call attention to emergency situations, and they expect their elected officials to start advocating immediately. Again, thank you for this time, Mr. Chairman. Back to you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Begay, are you back on the call?
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Chairman, here are all RDC members. Dikodo Bahasiki legislation. I believe I sent an email to RDC and then Mr. Silversmith regarding the how this particular legislation is being developed. We're not really sure what the outcome will be in the previous legislation that the council approved. Approved it daily with one of our colleagues. 19 million base of Chahulia, Ados base amendments passed of all the dirt roads across the Navajo Nation. Well, I do appreciate Mr. Yellowhair advocacy, and it's long overdue. But my question was that should that legislation pass with the amendment, I think there's same amount of several more dollars will be going towards his district or his chapter with this legislation in 120. I think we helped with the 19 million, and if that attachment is also approved as is, I mean, there's more dollars will be allocated. But if it doesn't pass, that legislation, even with this current legislation, I believe if you do the percentage for the Chile agency, Mr. Yellowhair chapters, again, I'm sure they are in dire need for these road funding as well. But if you do the percentage, Mr. Yellowhair's chapters are receiving 60% out of the 16 chapters within the Chile agency. I did ask for input and recommendation for discussion to Mr. Silversmith now. So I don't know, you have to that unless that could have been as you know that I not even the list that I have over here presenting to the council, not much of my chapters are on there. It seems like I'm doing a lot of work on behalf of the council, but yet, what about my area? So, legislation I don't know. I mean, I don't want to delay or delay passing this particular legislation. But if not, the council can help push, include some of my roads in my area or the other Chile agency, because I know Sadie Whitfield is asking, I think it was 8077 that's asking for additional funding for the dirt road because a lot of our Navajo people lives in that area. No, I don't know if he's on the line listening. Because I know this is being recommended by Mr. Silversmith, and he did attended all our meetings over here with the three senators, and the Navajo, I mean, the senator, especially one of the senators, was asking a specific road projects for the Utah portion. For each of our region, for each of our chapters. I appreciate Mr. Silversmith taking part in all the meetings, and he was the main one doing the presentation to the senators about the project listing that we have over here. If the new funding project, the new roads construction, or could this be any type of a matching fund? They always ask if there's any matching funds that needed. I don't know. Legislation. I guess I was in time to call in to listen in on this legislation. I appreciate your brother. If I'm authorized to make a position on this legislation, I can do that. Otherwise, I can refrain from participating in voting. But I can at least be on record to make a statement to the chairman. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Begay, for your advocacy on behalf of the Navajo Nation in many areas, and including the roads on the Navajo Nation. I'm glad that you're there in DC seeking more funding to improve our roads across the Navajo Nation. Thank you for that, Chinanta. Mr. Silversmith?
Thank you once again, Honorable Chair Nez, and the Resources and Development Committee, and specifically Honorable Delegate Kiel Begay. So it was my pleasure, Delegate Begay, to be involved with those 4 calls this morning with the U.S. DOT, Senator Sinema, Senator Kelly, and Senator Romney. I believe you and your colleagues made a noticeable impact as far as the needs over here in the Navajo Nation. And our leadership in DC were well receptive of our requests and your requests and the needs that you had explained this morning. But beyond that, going to specifically to this legislation, yes, I hear your point as far as there's a broader range of needs throughout the Navajo Nation, and the transportation projects is no different. There's many needs out there. As I had once shared before, the Navajo Nation's needs, truly, if you're looking at it from a perspective of monetary funds, this nation needs over $7 billion worth of funds to address all our needs and to get it to a safe manner, safe passage for all our travelers. And this 17 million is a good step toward that progress. But however, we're still short of billions of dollars to address all our dirt roads and highways and bridges. But going back to your comments, sir, in as far as Delegate Yellowhair's previous legislation 0313-20, and I believe the other one was 315-20, and that would be this body's decision as far as how we want to approach the central agency's allocation of $3.2 million. At the time, about a year ago, this was as a result of what you see those projects listed in the agency for central agencies. Those are what we had derived as some of the main priorities as far as each of the communities as we had visited. But again, $3.2 million isn't enough to sufficiently address central agencies' routes. We did our best as we could, and I think this is a comfortable list here that we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters that we're addressing here in central agency, and the needs of the chapters go beyond 8 chapters. But that's my comments here, Chair Nez. And again, yes, hopefully Delegate Yellowhair's 2 legislations will get approved here shortly. But and these projects here will supplement this $3.2 million list of projects will supplement central agency. Thank you, Chair Nez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silversmith. Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? Then we'll go ahead and vote on it. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
Green, Chairman. Green chili.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay?
Chairman, if I'm allowed, green.
You're allowed. You're on the call, so Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
Chairman, I vote green.
Honorable Daniels votes green. He just texted in. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries. C, on new business, approving a work session with Scheduler 1 and Navajo Land Department and General Land Development Department regarding discussion on implementation of FirstNet across the Navajo Nation. Recommended date, August 16th on a Monday. On the 17th is Tuesday. And I would like to have a motion and a second. Motion.
Chairman Keelan.
Thank you. Second by?
I'll second, Chair.
Who's this?
Freeland?
Honorable Freeland, thank you. Any questions?
Chairman?
16th or 17th?
Chairman?
Okay.
This is Shammy. Brian from Cell One, they're okay with either one of the dates that RDC selects. So 16th or the 17th. As soon as you decide which date, then I will get in touch with Cell One.
Chairman Freeland.
Honorable Freeland.
Could we have it early on either day? I really would like to attend a chapter meeting, or actually chapter meetings on those 2 days.
All of the leadership meetings are scheduled at 9 o'clock, and it depends on what their outline of their agenda is, Chairman.
Okay, so Ms. Begay, can we have it at 8 o'clock instead on the 17th?
I can work with them. I can let them know you're requesting for 8 o'clock meeting.
Okay, honorable colleagues, I believe the 17th would work better on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Are there any opposition? Aspiga.
Second.
Okay, we'll go with the 17th at 8 o'clock, Ms. Begay, but just to keep in mind at 9 o'clock, if that's okay too, but we would prefer 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay,
Ms.
I'll do
Begay.
that. I'll let them know.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go with August 17th, which is on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Any comments or questions, my honorable RDC colleagues? None? We'll put it to a vote. Honorable Freeland?
Green, Chairman.
Okay. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay?
Chairman Keelan votes green.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
I vote green.
Honorable Daniels? Honorable Daniels. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. We'll have the first net meeting on the 17th at 8 o'clock. D, approving an off-reservation travel and leadership meeting with CKP Insurance and Budget and Finance meeting with them in Scottsdale, Arizona on August 26 and 27. I'd like to have a motion and a second.
A motion, Freeland.
Thank you. Second by?
Chairman, I'll second.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Any comments, questions? None? Honorable Freeland, how do you vote?
Green.
Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Honorable Begay?
Agree.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker?
I vote green.
Honorable Daniels? We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. Yes, Nanda. We're at the conclusion of our committee meeting. Any announcements? Nanda. None. Motion to adjourn.
Freeland.
Honorable Freeland, second by
I'll second.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Any comments, questions?
Chairman, Rick Naz, Eugene, so that's for the record. That 1096 was my number all through the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, nan I don't need to Chen Lido. Ne besh mahasa ana Eugene show. I didn't. Yeah.
I don't know the house now. Oh,
There you go. Hey, Honorable so you're next. I don't know. Hakushila. No other questions or comments. Honorable Freeland, how do you vote, sir?
Green.
Honorable Stewart.
Green.
Honorable Begay.
Chairman Kelly votes green.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Chair, I vote green.
Honorable Daniels. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries. We officially adjourned at 12:47 p.m. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Honorable Begay, for advocating on behalf of the Navajo Nation at Washington, D.C. We'll see you when you come back. Hakona, y'all be safe. Make sure you continue to mask up. This new variant, Delta variant, is just very deadly as well. So make sure to tell your families, everybody, encourage them to mask up. God bless you all. Hakona.